Alrighty, so thanks everybody for tuning into this episode. Today we have Ausra Tallat-Kelpsa Di Raimondo, and she is the board president of Blue Yellow USA. So, per usual, let's get started with the mission. So, what is the mission of Blue Yellow USA?
Provide non-lethal medical aid and care and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, to its citizens, its defenders, all the way down to its animals. And we do it from procurement to delivery. We deliver to high risk areas, to almost near the front line. We're not allowed to zero line, but as close as we can get, and to underserved areas. And that includes the medical care. We've done mobile units to underserved areas as well. So the basic mission is to provide aid of all kinds that is non lethal to Ukraine. And we've been doing
All
it since
right,
2019.
awesome. Thank you for that background. 20. Okay, so you've been started for a few years now. What were some of the and actually before I even do that, why you? Why is this something that you, as you mentioned before we hit the record button, spend so much time during your day and put so much passion towards? Like, what was a spark initially?
Historical. So I'm of Lithuanian background. My grandmother's from Ukraine. My was from Ukraine. And for us, the struggle for independence is a long-term historical event. And we've been very much involved in that history. I do a lot of research. I've been doing it for 30 years, in on World War II and in this area of what happened in Lithuania, the Baltics, and other countries that are our neighbors. And our family had suffered quite a bit through the Russian occupations of 1940 and 1944, as well as the Nazi occupation of 1941. So it was important to us. And in 20, we'd been watching Ukraine for a while. We'd watched the Granite Revolution in 1991, and then the Orange Revolution in 2004, and then in 2014 there was the Maidan. So their struggle, while Lithuania was becoming more independent, was continuing, and it meant that we had to help out in some way. Ukrainians had been in our square in Vilnius in 1991 when we were demonstrating for our independence, and we wanted to be there for them, even as Lithuanian Americans. And from the American component, historically, the United States has always been on the side of democracy, of freedom. We remember, Reagan's words about the wall and so on. And so it was important from these two aspects to ensure that Ukraine not only remained independent, but could follow down a similar path as the Baltics had and so on, to, independence, to a more democratic and Western way of life and thinking, um, and a better future for its citizens. And then in 2014, when Maidan happened, we had a visitor from Lithuania because my daughter at the time was working on a documentary about Lithuanian resistance. And Maidan happened just at the time we were all meeting together. And he went then to Maidan and he contacted us from there. We had become good friends and let us know that he'd opened a organization called Blue Yellow for Ukraine and Lithuania, and he was going to go ahead and get involved. And he was in Donbass, in Donetsk. They were working with the soldiers. They saw what was going on, and the reports back were horrible. So, and at that time, Russia was claiming that it was not the one that was there. Come to find out later, of course, through documentation and Igor Gherkin, who had been the leader, that in fact the little green men were Russian soldiers. So we got involved from that time, and we were helping with donations and packing boxes and so on. And then in 2019, Blue Yellow Lithuania asked us if we would form a nonprofit here in the United States to support them, which we did. And we would, donations would come here, and we would provide whatever was asked for and necessary. In 2022, we were retroactively made a 501c3 nonprofit, federal nonprofit, within 9 days. It was a record for us, at least. And we
Wow.
began then working independently. So we have a team on the ground in Ukraine. We have a medical team and a logistics team. And then we have a team here. We have an advocacy team that goes to DC. We'll be participating in the Ukraine Action Summit in a couple of days. And we have volunteers here that work with us to do things, to pack things, to get fundraising done, to have events, so that we can help with every request that we get, and we are getting many, and they're increasing. So that's kind of the
Yeah.
historical background and the why we're so passionate about this.
Yeah, absolutely. A quick clarification on the mission statement. You say non-lethal aid. It sounds like that was an intentional part of the mission statement. So, why was that, and what does that mean, first of all, and why did that need to be mentioned in the mission?
You get off. We're asked often if we provide guns and ammunition and
Mm,
artillery and that sort of thing. And as a 501c3, we cannot. Now, there are
correct.
nonprofits in Europe that are allowed to do this. So, one of them is Come Back Alive, which is a Ukrainian nonprofit, and some of the others in Lithuania can. We can't. We support in every other way. So we will provide helmets, we will provide ballistics vests, so protective gear, and not just to soldiers, but medics are continuously attacked in Ukraine. They are double tapped, in fact. So if
Mm,
there's a bombing and the medics go to help people, there will be an immediate follow-up bomb targeted at those medics. So we have to make sure that they are protected, not just our medics, but all medics, protected with that same gear. So again, ballistics vests, helmets, whatever they need from us to provide to them. That's part of the non-lethal equipment that we provide, as opposed to, or in
right.
contrast with, humanitarian aid, which is generally understood as food and medications, and other types of supplies like baby wipes and Pampers. So I did want to make that distinction because we do get asked that. And no, we don't provide
Yeah.
ammunition or any kind of, no guns, no weapons of any sort.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for explaining that. So, when you first established in the USA in 2019, what were some of the initial needs that the people that you were serving had? And I'd love to hear some of those early on stories when you guys were officially incepted, and what activities you were participating in right away.
First orders we received were for helmets, vests, and drones, for anti drone jamming equipment. And they were primarily that sort of thing: uniforms, boots, um, all of those things that would be necessary for a military, which you would think they would be.
Wow, wow, yeah, wow. So you fulfill incoming requests from procurement to delivery, provide medical training and care, especially with high risk and underserved areas. You said it basically as close to the front line as you're able to get. Um, what is kind of the future plans? Is it to continue expanding, to keep garnering support, to keep fundraising, to continue to be able to respond to these requests? I'd love to hear kind of the short, medium, long term plan that you have, and that, as well as your hopes for the organization. A lot of the nonprofits I talk to hope that they don't have to be doing the things that they're doing because things don't need to be provided, whether it's services or goods, because there's no longer a threat or no longer a need. But I'd love to hear from your perspective that short, medium, long term hopes and plans for Blue Yellow USA.
Includes our, um, advocacy activities. So we keep the costs of everything that goes to Ukraine separate from going to DC and meeting with Congress people and doing advocacy, meeting with the Atlantic Council and so on. Our former managing director did a lot of work with the Atlantic Council. She provided information, she spoke at conferences and so on, because she'd been on the ground and she was coming back saying, here's what's going on. So we keep that separate. And so if we just consider administration costs, it's just mainly like software for accounting, and so on. So our auditor is pro bono, our lawyer is pro bono. We're able to save a lot so that we can continue providing to Ukraine. And that is going to be in the long term as well. So short term, we see ourselves fulfilling all these needs, including protection needs. Once the victory is gained, we will need less of the protection type stuff, but we will need a lot of the rebuilding, materials, rebuilding medical facilities,
Right.
providing them with equipment, providing them with trained personnel that now will be willing to come and work with different people. Ukraine lost a lot of its people as refugees. Hopefully, they will come back and also continue working. So, the initial phase is to provide, the second phase is to rebuild, and the third phase, and rebuilding will take a long time, is to maintain. So, whatever's been rebuilt, to help maintain it and make sure it remains viable and available to the Ukrainian population. We work with a lot of foreigners that are there. They're all dedicated, passionate, married maybe to Ukrainians, or just there because they're fighting for democracy and America stands for something for them. Or if they're from other countries like Latvia, Lithuania, and the Baltics, it's their fight as well. Um, so those are the three phases. For us, advocacy remains a thread all the way through because we strongly feel that if Russia wins this war, three things will happen. One is Ukraine will be a vassal of Russia, and all the natural resources in Ukraine, which it has that are the second largest in Europe. If they are controlled by Russia, Europe will be controlled by Russia. So one of America's staunchest ally groups may no longer be able to be an ally. Then they're with China together, they're working in South America and in Africa. And we've got Wagner and other groups there as well. If they're not stopped in Ukraine, that will continue. So in the end, the United States is isolated as a country and weaker as a country if Russia wins, because Russia's only interest is to expand its empire. They say that all the time on Russian television. If people understood the language in this country, they would be shocked and probably support Ukraine much more than they're doing.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So, people that are listening and want to get engaged and support Blue Yellow, how could they get engaged with you, and what type of support or engagement do you typically look for?
We would love to have support. We actually are considering adding to our volunteer groups. So, anyone who's interested in volunteering, and we're looking particularly at young people and retired persons who have a lot of experience in different areas like accounting and maybe nonprofits and so on to work with us to expand what we're able to do and help us also to fundraise, which is important. We also are looking for anyone who wants to help on the ground or to help us here in Chicago and elsewhere with packing boxes, getting things together and sent over to Ukraine. So we have various aspects where we're seeking volunteer help. People can go to our website. It's www.fo blueyellowukraineusa.org. And I gave it to you in the materials that I sent you. And they can look us up there, or they can find us on Twitter, Blue Yellow USA, on Instagram. We are on basically all the major social medias. They can contact me via my personal Twitter, which is at Ausra Maria 0511. They can email us at blueyellowusa at foblueyellowukraineusa.org. So there are various ways where they can contact us and look for us on social media. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and are going to be on TikTok, Blue Sky. We already have an account on Blue Sky. And so we'll be making all of that available on our website. The four major ones are already, new ones are upcoming. They can also look at our website for any news, the photos of all the work we've been doing and that we've done, so they can see that we're actually there on the ground working. And any volunteers who want to go to Ukraine and join our team there are welcome to contact me. We'll work with you. We have plenty of work to do there too.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And people that are listening, if you feel inspired and want to get engaged and support the work that the team is doing, please follow up, and we'll share all the links that you shared with us and tag you everywhere that's relevant. So as we wrap up, Ausra, what did we miss anything that you wanted to share, or is there anything you want to leave us with before we end this episode?
Yes, I do. I would like your audience to understand that this is a very real problem. It's continuing and intensifying. Our people on the ground are coming back to us and letting us know that it is getting worse and more difficult. So advocate, go to your congressperson, please have them sign the discharge petition so that the aid bill comes to the floor and gets voted on. 6 months of no aid have killed tens of thousands of people. This is very clear. And you can do that simply by, going on any social media, and you get to your congressperson, write to them, call them, let them know this is absolutely necessary and the time is now. Otherwise, I think we are going to see a serious situation with war. Russia's already attacking the nuclear plant that's there. They're in it themselves and they've bombed part of it. And that's concerning to everyone. And they're continuing just to carpet bomb the cities until they're obliterated. And I don't think that it's humane to continue to allow that when all we need to do is provide them with military assistance. We're not putting soldiers on the ground. We're not sending NATO over there. Although we should remember that when we called Article 5, and the United States is the only country to have called Article 5 for NATO for help after 9/11, Ukraine sent troops, just like a lot of other countries. So we got help when we called for it. We should provide help when we are called to do it, especially since through the Budapest Memorandum, we told Ukraine, if you give up your nuclear weapons, we will we will defend you if your borders get attacked. And we're not really doing that right now. So these commitments that we made, they're part of our USA fabric. They're the fabric of the country that's the beacon on the hill that provides assistance when it's needed to support and defend freedom and democracy in the world. Um, that's what we've always done. And in not doing that, we are made weaker. So advocate, go to your congressperson. And yes, if you don't donate to us, donate to your favorite charity that is supporting Ukraine and providing these goods that are needed. Um, it's not enough to provide 1,000 tourniquets. In a week, you're going to need another 1,000 because these are used on the people who are wounded, both civilians and military. It's not enough to send a one time of anything. It's keep doing it because they're constantly being used and needed. Again, our managing director is a medic on the ground now. She's formerly with us, but she thought being a medic was going to be the best way to help. And what we're hearing from her is the support is continuously needed until Ukraine wins this war.
Well, well, thank you so much for that. So, people that are listening and inspired, get engaged. There's a lot of help needed, and if you have any questions or follow up or want to continue education, we'll share the links and social media URLs of Blue Yellow USA. So, Ausra, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it for sharing the story and the work that you're doing. And yeah, our hearts go out to you and to the people that have been impacted, especially the civilians, by this. And keep up the good work, and we'll stay in touch.